Well, hello, everyone. This is Christopher Selly, founder of Nonfiction Fitness, and today I'm going to share with you my brand new presentation, Staying Fit While Staying Home, 4 things to avoid and 3 things to add. I was asked to do this presentation for a client of mine who is a financial advisor. He works for Raymond James, by the way, if any of y'all are looking for someone. Palm Avenue Wealth Advisory Group. And it went over really well, so I decided to re-record it and send it out to everybody that is a subscriber of mine. So let me just talk a little bit about this issue of quarantining and how it affects our physical health. Anytime that you limit movement, your body begins to atrophy. Okay, and that's because the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it, is absolutely 100,000% true for every single cell in our body. So when we're at home and we're not doing stuff, we're not using stuff, we are losing stuff. And I know that very well, okay, because when I was 15 years old, I had to quarantine for an extended period of time because I had leukemia and I was going through chemotherapy, okay, and my immune system was at literal zero during many moments during those initial months of chemo. And if I got around anyone who even had like the smallest, weakest bacteria, I could get it and it could become something really serious. So what I realized during that time is that the body, it can break down really quick when you're not doing stuff. Okay, I was 15, 16 years old, and within 10 months, I was in such bad shape that I literally couldn't walk more than a couple blocks without really feeling like I was going to pass out. And so, so this topic is really personal to me because of that. And so I really want to share with you guys a few things that I wish people would have shared with me back in those days. It would have helped me a lot. And, I know for many people, you might be going back into a normal workout routine, maybe getting back into the gym or something, but this will be something that you'll really want to implement anyway in some form. And also, if you do have to stay home for some other reason, this is a really good thing to do as well. So first, let's talk about the 4 things to avoid. Okay, so the very first thing is sitting too long. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about that. Second thing is extended position in extended time in positions that you're not used to. Number 3 is not moving your joints enough. We're going to talk a lot about that too. And then number 4 is overgeneralized home exercise programs. All right, so let's talk first about sitting. I know it's ironic that I'm telling you all this stuff about sitting while I'm sitting, but sitting is a modern day menace. Okay, sitting is now known to be a huge contributor to early death, to early formation of disease, to pain, to all kinds of really bad things. And it's because studies show that more than half of the average person's waking life involves sedentary activity, such as watching television, working at a computer, or commuting. We can all agree that technology is great. Advancements in transportation technology have been fantastic. Advancements in entertainment technology have been fantastic. Advancements in, computer technology have been fantastic. We're really grateful for all this stuff. But here's the thing. All that stuff has a downside, right? And the major downside, well, there's many, but one major downside, at least for our physical health, is that all these technological advances have encouraged us to spend more time sitting or just generally being still. And like I just said, if you don't use it, you lose it. So if these things are causing us to use our body less, then they are causing us to lose strength and health faster, right? And so let me explain to you what the big issues are with sitting. Because this is specifically what most people do way too much of. So I'll point your attention first to the pictures on the right. Okay, so let's start with the top picture. There's 2 pictures there. The one on the right is an illustration of the various blood vessels in your lower extremity. Okay, and quick anatomy lesson, your heart pumps blood and it also receives blood. Okay, the blood that comes back to the heart goes through the veins. Those are the things that are blue. And the blood that goes to the body from the heart goes through the arteries, and those are colored red. So so that's the difference there. So picture this, okay? The person on the left is sitting, and what's going on in her lower extremity? Okay, there's pressure being exerted on her legs, right? That pressure is actually creating a degree of impingement to the blood vessels of her lower extremity. And because of that, they're not able to do their two main functions: send blood to the cells that need it and return the blood back to the heart. Okay, you've probably experienced an extreme example of this when your legs have actually fallen asleep while you've been sitting. Okay, that's like a major loss of blood. Okay, so much so that like your body's sending you a message saying, get out of this position now, or else stuff's going to start to die. And you know, you get up, you move around, and that goes away. Well, that's more so the blood going to the cells. But what about the blood going back to the heart? Well, if that gets disrupted long enough, often enough, then you have what is depicted on that bottom picture. This is called venous insufficiency. Now, before I explain venous insufficiency, let me just tell you a few of the symptoms of venous insufficiency. One of them is leg swelling. Would you say that you have any leg swelling? One of them is the formation of dark spots on the legs. How about that? And have you experienced that at all? Another is varicose veins. I know a lot of people struggle with that. And then also just a feeling of heaviness in the legs is also often a symptom of this. So here's what happens, okay? So the constant pressure on the veins creates a damage to the valves within the veins, and those valves fail to keep the blood flowing in one direction. Okay, so you picture a valve, right? It opens up and blood goes through it, right? And as blood goes through it, it is supposed to close and keep blood from going backwards, right? And then it'll open up again and let more through, and so on. Well, if the valve gets disrupted, you know, then maybe it's not going to close all the way, or maybe it's not going to close on time. Right? And then you have a backflow. So you actually have a pooling of blood, a pooling of fluid. That's what leads to all those things that I just mentioned: the varicose veins, the spots, the heaviness, the swelling. And it's really, really bad for you. In fact, they've said that this problem can make you twice as likely to develop cardiovascular disease. And I've read statistics that suggest that you have up to a 49% greater chance of dying from any cause if you get to this point. And this typically is something that is experienced by people that sit for 6, 8, or more hours per day. And so if you think about the total amount of time that you sit, it's probably about that, or maybe more, right? Because if you count drive time, TV time, computer time, reading time, meal time, all together, you know, it adds up to a lot. It also elevates your cholesterol, elevates your blood pressure. Not good. Here's what else it does. It creates a tremendous amount of stress on your musculoskeletal system. You know, you can see the picture on the right. It looks, you know, almost like funny bad, you know, like, oh, I would never sit like that. But you probably do that more often than you think, or at least a close version of that, right? Because when we get intensely involved in something, whether we're reading, we're writing, we're looking at something online, whatever, we will often, you know, just because we're focusing on it, change our body posture to actually be a posture of focus, right? So like, I'll use this as an example, right? So like right now, you know, you wouldn't look at me and say necessarily like, he looks really focused. But if I did this, right, I would look a lot more focused, right? Because I'm leaned in, you know, I'm actually putting my body towards the thing that I'm looking at. It's like I'm trying to actually become more one with it, you know? And in order for me to do that, I have to change my spinal angle big time, right? And so we get in this position a lot, okay, or some version of it. And here's what happens, right? You got this 8-pound head on this big lever called the spine, and when it goes out this far, it exerts a tremendous amount of force on the spine, okay? And that causes a lot of strain on the neck muscles, the neck discs and ligaments, the lower back muscles, the lower back discs, the upper back muscles and discs, the shoulders, all kinds of things. And so when we do sit, A, we want to have really good posture, but B, we want to, as I'll mention in a second, we want to take breaks a lot to really offset some of the effects on our musculoskeletal system. So I mentioned before about sitting being a contributor to early mortality. Well, you can see on this graph the difference between sitting for less than 4 hours and sitting for more than 11 hours. It goes up pretty substantially. And some studies have actually shown that sitting for a prolonged amount of time each and every day is actually a greater risk factor for early mortality than is smoking. So you might, hear that or read that in some publication, sitting is the new smoking. And, that's why they say that, because it's such a huge risk factor for early death. So here's what you can do right now, okay? First thing is we got to develop an awareness of how much we sit, okay? Like I mentioned before, we got to tally up all the different times of day that we sit, and we got to quantify how long we're actually in that position so that we know in general, what we're doing now. And then we got to start to make adjustments to it. We got to choose activities that require us to move. We've got to get a standing desk so we can alternate positions while we're at the computer. And we need to just, generally be more conscious of moving. When we're sitting, we can kind of fidget. And when we have been sitting for a while, we can get up and move around for a little while to help to offset some of the effects of the sitting. In fact, in some studies, they've found that just getting up for 5 total minutes per hour will actually make a huge difference in the amount of negative effects that you'll have from sitting. Okay, so that's an easy thing you can do right away. Set yourself a timer or give yourself some other reminder to just get up for 5 total minutes every single hour. So the next thing that we want to avoid while we're staying at home is extended time in bodily positions that we're not used to. So sometimes, when we're home a lot, we have a tendency to find things that we need to work on or clean or fix or whatever. And oftentimes doing those things requires us to be in a body position that we're just not in that much. Maybe we need to get down on our hands and knees to scrub a floor. Maybe we need to get in this weird contorted position to go up under our sink to fix something. Maybe we need to, get up on a ladder and reach up really high to, change a light bulb that we haven't changed in 5 years, or whatever the case may be. My advice to you is, if you can delegate that stuff, delegate it. And if you don't want to, or you can't, then just be really cautious to not get too far out of a position that you're used to. If you haven't gotten down on your hands and knees in a year, you may want to find a way to modify how you're going to clean the floor. Maybe you're just going to kind of squat down rather than fully get down. Or if you do get down all the way, then don't stay there for too long. Okay, stay there for maybe a couple minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then get up, offset some of that pressure on your discs and on your other body parts from being in that position, and then get back and do it again. This is a much better way to go, because if you get down, let's just use the example of cleaning. If you get down on your hands and knees for an hour and you're scrubbing the floor and you haven't done that in a really long time, chances are pretty good you're going to not feel so great afterwards. Now, to what degree depends on how bad you were before you did that, but it's just a better idea to limit that. So that's my advice to you. So another thing that we want to definitely avoid is not moving our joints. Okay. So, I mentioned to you the whole, you don't use it, you lose it thing. And we can sort of, I guess, probably envision how that affects our muscles more than anything, because we can kind of see our muscles a little bit more. You know, our muscles would shrink and get weaker, but our joint tissue can actually have negative effects also. You know, all these different tissues that you see here. You see bones, you see the end of the bone. If you can see my cursor, you see the end of the bone. It has the cartilage on it. That's the padding that helps protect it from shock, and also helps to create like a smooth surface for it to glide on when it presses against the other bone. And so you know, that tissue can atrophy if you're not using your joints. The bones can atrophy, the ligaments that connect bones to bones. You know, here's a tendon here. You know, all that stuff can atrophy. And so that's an issue with not moving. But here's another issue. This fluid, okay, this is called synovial fluid. This fluid will actually begin to dry up after a while if you're not moving your joints regularly. And what happens when that fluid dries up is that the source of nutrition and the source of life, basically, for all these joint tissues, okay, for the cartilage specifically, goes away, because that's where these things get their nutrition from. Okay, there's no blood supply to the joints. You notice how there's no blood vessels in there. No blood goes into that area of the body, and because of that, the nutrients have to come from another source. So it comes from the synovial fluid. And so basically you can equate a lack of synovial fluid to a lack of blood, right? It's like if the blood supply got cut off to something, it would be similar to if the synovial fluid supply got cut off to this stuff, right? And so what happens then? Well, things start to die faster, right? And then also you have just an overall stiffening of the joint. Okay, so you imagine your engine, right? You know how your engine has parts that, like, you know, like one goes inside of the other and they have to like kind of glide, like the surfaces have to glide on each other. Well, that's why we need oil in our engine, right? Because when those surfaces glide against each other, if they're not lubricated with something, there's friction. And if there's friction, then there's heat, and heat will not be good, you know, for that surface. And it actually starts to get damaged pretty substantially because of a lack of lubrication. This is why you never want to be without oil in your engine. And so the synovial fluid basically acts like oil, okay? And it lubricates those surfaces so that they can glide against each other, and so that there's less friction. So you know, in the short term, you're going to have a stiffening of the joint, which will cause movement to be just not as comfortable. And then as it goes on longer and longer, you'll actually have like this greater atrophy to the joint capsule and the joint cells because of this lack of nutrition that you know, the lack of synovial fluid is causing. So you definitely want to keep moving your joints. I'm going to show you a real short video here in a second of some different movements that you can do to just help keep your joints lubricated. But this is just a principle that I'm trying to convey to you, more so than like a program, right? It's like if you just move stuff, regardless of what it is and what direction, you know, if you just move your joints around, you are going to release some of that synovial fluid, okay? Because that's the thing I didn't mention, is that movement actually elicits a release of synovial fluid, and the more you move, the more it gets released, right? So you just start moving stuff, and that synovial fluid gets released, and not only do you have smoother, more comfortable movement, but you also have more nutrition going to all those joint cells, keeping them alive longer, keeping them healthy, keeping them thriving. And in the moving of the joint, you also use your muscles, so you help to offset some of the atrophy that you might have there. So really, really important thing. Now, here's another really key component to moving our joints. Another key benefit, I should say, is that we have more lymphatic flow when we move our joints a lot. All right, so the picture that you see there is a picture of the lymphatic system of the body. All right, so picture this, okay? You're inside your house, you're doing stuff all week long, you're creating waste, right? Your waste goes in the trash can fills up, you you tie the bag, you put it out on the curb, trash person picks it up, takes it to the dump. No more trash in your house, right? If the trash person went on strike, right, that would not be good, right? That's happened in different cities at different times in history, and it hasn't been good. I remember reading about one in New York from, I think it was like the 1970s, and like it just like stunk everywhere. It's like horrible, putrid, foul stench everywhere because of this trash buildup. Well, check this out. So your lymphatic system is basically like your trash collection system of your body, okay? Every single cell in your body, picture it like a house in a neighborhood, right? It's like that house creates trash, right? Just the doing of life creates trash that comes out of that cell, and then it has to be picked up by something and gotten rid of, right? And that thing that picks it up are these lymphatic ducts, these parts of your lymphatic system all over your body, and they'll just suck that trash up and then push it through this series of tubes, and it'll eventually get excreted, one way or another, through different ways that we would excrete things. And so, so here's the thing to keep in mind is that your lymphatic system, okay, is basically responsible for the level of trash in your body at any given time. And your lymphatic system can only work optimally if you're moving a lot, okay? Because when you move, what you're doing is you're actually pushing that trash through those tubes. So, and you can kind of even picture how that would happen, right? Like if I move my arm towards my head, right? What am I doing? I'm compressing some of this stuff, and I'm causing it to move, right? This is lymphatic flow that I'm encouraging. And so when I don't move, conversely, I'm just experiencing trash buildup. It's just piling up, and before long, I'm going to stink. And see what happens is that all that trash actually stresses the body to the point where it doesn't function optimally. And it can even affect pretty substantially your immune system health, right? So how many times on TV have you heard from the experts that you need to move your joints more so that your immune system is healthier and better able to fight off a virus? Good thing you're watching this video, huh? So that's a big, important reason why we need to keep moving a lot. And we need to move every part of our body, because each different part of our body will push a different part of the lymphatic system, will cause flow in a different part of the lymphatic system. And so we need to do it everywhere. So, so that's joint movement. That's one thing that we want to add. We'll get to that in a second. We want to obviously avoid not moving. But here's the last thing that I want you to avoid if you are staying at home, is I want you to avoid overgeneralized home workouts. All right. We can often feel pretty motivated after we haven't done anything for a couple of days, and we, just choose the path of least resistance. We go on YouTube, we look up exercise videos, we follow along, and then the next day we wake up and we can barely move, right? This happens a lot, and I've heard that it's happening a lot more since the quarantine, because people are having to, do these overgeneralized home workouts, in order to just keep themselves sane and fit and whatever else. So, I don't want you to make that same mistake. I want you to, really be cautious with what workouts you do. I'm going to give you a few suggestions in this video. These are things that pretty much anybody can do. And I'm going to tell you a couple variations of the few that maybe are like a little bit more advanced. But more than likely, they are not going to even come close to creating any kind of inflammatory response that would lead to immune suppression. And that's one of the big risks of doing these home workouts. I mean, in addition to injuring yourself, physically harming your bodily tissues, just the soreness that you feel, the inflammation and the soreness that is there, actually leads to immune suppression. So you don't want to do workouts that are overgeneralized, too intense, any of that, and become sore, because that does affect whether you can fight viruses. So, so we're all going to avoid those things, okay? And what are we going to add? Well, I encourage you to add these 3 things, okay? Abdominal tightening exercises, joint-specific movements, and walking variations. All right, so abdominal tightening exercises are probably some of the easiest exercises that you're ever going to do in your entire life. But they require a lot of consistency in order to, gain a lot of benefit from. So here's what I want you to think about, okay? You see that goofy picture there on the bottom right. Obviously it's of a guy who's getting punched in the stomach and he doesn't look too happy about it. I use this picture a lot when I'm talking about this concept is because I'm trying to convey something to you that you want to, in order to do this exercise, you want to actually almost envision like what you would do if someone were about to punch you in the stomach. Okay, so your natural reaction would be to tighten everything up and prepare for impact, right? Because when you tighten everything up, the fist is not going to go as far as if you're loose, right? And then you're going to end up with like a kidney punch, not just a stomach punch or an abdominal punch, right? So that would be your body's natural reaction to that threat, right? So I want you to do that right now, okay? I want you to tighten your stomach as if you were preparing for an impact, all right? And that's kind of like the best way that I can tell you how to do that, other than tell you to do what you might do like in the bathroom, but I'm not even going to go there. But just tighten up, like you're getting ready for a punch. And as you do, feel those muscles. You can actually even push on your stomach. I mean, I know you might have a bunch of padding there, but deep down there are muscles, I guarantee you. And so if you push down hard enough and far enough, you'll be able to feel your muscles actually tightening up when you do that. And that means you're doing it correctly. So what you want to do throughout the course of a day is you want to do sets of those types of contractions. You want to tighten your stomach and you want to hold that contraction for an extended period of time. Okay, and what I recommend that you start with are 5 repetitions of 30-second contractions at about a 50% intensity. All right, so if you think about what you would do if you were getting ready for a punch, maybe that would be 100%. I want you to do 50%. I want you to do half that much for 30 seconds straight, 5 times in a row, okay, with maybe 30 or 40 seconds in between. All right, so just do that right now. Just tighten up 100% and then release it a little bit so that you still feel some tension in there, but it's not so much that like, you can't focus on anything else. And then just hold it at that level for about the next 30 seconds. It's not hard. It's super, super easy. And you might even find it so easy that you might not even think you're doing anything. But you are doing something, okay? Because see, these muscles were never intended to be worked like with heavy weights at really high intensities, okay? These muscles of your core are meant to work at a really low level for a really long period of time, right? Like all day, basically. So really their job is just to control your spine. And so all they have to do is just tighten up a little bit and just control your spine. And they do that all day long, But see, the thing is that we sit so much and we relax our muscles in our stomach so much that over time they've lost their ability to do this. And so we have to consciously tighten them for extended periods of time to help restore that ability for them to do this, even when we're not thinking about it. And when we're not trying to do it. And that's going to help our spine tremendously. That's going to help our hips and our pelvis tremendously. It's going to help even our internal organs tremendously. So this is something that you really want to be doing a lot of, and you're not really going to overdo this. Okay, if you do it 5 times for 30 seconds each time, and you do that 5 times a day, you're still not going to be overdoing it. Okay, so I encourage you to do this as often as possible. Do it while you're driving, do it while you're watching TV, do it while you're eating a meal. you know, just get in the habit of doing this, and especially do it whenever you are sitting for an extended period of time. Like if you are having to sit for maybe over an hour, let's say, try to do this frequently throughout that hour, okay? Because when you're relaxing your abdominal muscles, then your spine is actually in a more compromised position than when you're contracting your abdominals. So if you're sitting for a long time and you're putting that kind of stress on your spine, you don't want to have your abs relaxed for that whole time period because you don't want that amount of stress on your spine. So just keep that in mind. And then also, really hugely important, you're going to want to definitely remember this one. Make sure that if you bend over and you pick anything up, that you tighten your abs 100% before you do that, okay? And going back to what I mentioned earlier with avoiding body positions we're not used to going into much, if they involve bending forward or bringing the legs closer to the chest like they would be if you were down on your knees scrubbing your floor, keep your abs really tight the whole time, okay? It's not the easiest thing to do, but it will save your back so much stress. You will be so glad that you did it, okay? So file that one away. So let's see if I can get this video to work. And in this video, I am going to show you the other couple things that I want you to add. This was not working super great for me the other day when I did my presentation for the group. And it may take a moment now, and I am just gonna take the shortcut. So I talked about two other things, okay? So there were three total: ab tightening exercises, walking variations, and joint-specific movement. All right, so I'm going to talk to you first about the walking variations, okay? So first off, walking is absolutely critical to be doing right now. Unless you have some physical ailment that precludes you from being able to walk for a certain amount of time, you should be walking as often as you can. It's going to be really hard to overdo walking unless you just haven't been walking at all up until this point. But walking is so good for you. Walking will stretch so many muscles in your body. Walking will release so much synovial fluid in your joints. Walking will offset so much of the stress of sitting. Walking will push so much lymphatic fluid through your lymphatic ducts. Walking will get your oxygen level up, which is so good for your overall health. Plus, if you do it outside, it gets you under the sun, which gives you vitamin D, which also improves your immune system. So walking is really important. But the way that we walk makes a difference, okay? So if you walk with like a leisurely stroll, it's probably not going to give you as much of a fitness, cardiovascular, conditioning type benefit, immune building even, lymphatic flow type of benefit that you might want. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that you can modify your walk to get even more out of it in the same amount of time. So what I'm going to show you here are just some basic variations of the normal walk. Okay, so here I am doing kind of a normal walk. Now I'm going to extend my stride a little bit. You notice how my arms are going out a little further, and so are my legs. And now I'm going even further out in front of me. Okay, so let me play that again. So basically what I'm doing is I am altering the amount to which I am reaching forward with my arms and stretching forward with my leg. And I'm always going opposite arm, opposite leg, as you'll see. And I'm working up to a point where I am taking as long of a step as I can without doing a lunge, okay? So I don't recommend this to everyone, okay? You don't have to progress all the way up to that right away. If you feel comfortable with doing it, try it for a couple minutes, see how you do with it. But I do recommend to anyone who has been walking to at least extend the stride length a little bit, okay? Because like I said, that gives you so much more benefit. And once you extend the stride length a little bit, and you do that a few times, and your body says, hey, I feel okay with this, then you can extend it out a little bit more. And you don't have to do it for the whole walk. Maybe you only do it for like 30-second intervals. I'm a big fan of interval training, which means that you do something at a little bit higher intensity and then you bring it down for a period of time. And so you might do an interval style walk where you do a little bit longer of a stride, and then you go back to a normal, kind of more modest stroll. And then you do a little bit longer stroll, a little bit longer stroll, and you do that back and forth for the whole walk. You can vary it all kinds of different ways, but basically the take home is to go slow, okay? Introduce that new level of activity slowly, work up to it, make sure your body's okay with a little bit, and then go a little bit further, okay? And if you can get to the point where you're doing a full stride length walk, you know, for even 10 minutes, I mean, you're going to get a ton of benefit out of that. It's going to be amazing. And don't worry about how it looks, okay? Because you are the trendsetter. So if it looks weird to other people, it's just because they have not caught the revelation that it's good for them yet. And you know, hopefully maybe they'll follow your lead once they see you. So here's what else we're going to add, okay? We're going to add joint-specific motion. And I'm sure you guys love this backdrop, huh? This is underneath the Ringling Bridge by Bird Key. So here's an example in the shoulders, okay? So we're going to do that motion, bringing the arms up and in towards the head, you know, just being real slow, real gentle with it, right? Pretty much anybody out there can do body weight movements with their arms and their legs, okay? If you have a whole lot of issues in the area that I'm showing you the exercises in, be real careful with it. And if you do feel any discomfort or anything, you can stop. But most people, I think, that are watching this can do this. And so you want to go a couple different directions. You know, you want to go out to the side. You want to go out in front like that. You know, and you just keep your back real nice and straight. Don't arch, don't lean your head back. Just reach your arms up over your head. For this one, you reach one arm back and you pull the other arm across. Keep your body really stiff and still. You know, you're just moving your arms and you're not forcing it over. You know, you're just moving it to you reach a comfortable end and then stopping. And then this one, you know, you can totally do by holding on to something or by not bringing your legs up as high. But this is a great exercise to do, the marching in place. And this one is probably one where you're going to want to hold on to something. I mean, there's probably a few people out there that can do this without holding on. I would have shown it to you that way, but I didn't want to lose the backdrop. So you can hold on and just move your legs in that direction. Just like I did. And then lastly, just a full body rotation, you know, rotating at the hips, rotating at the trunk. This is one that if you have like a history of back problems, you want to do it really slowly, really, really gingerly, and work up to doing it full range. But those are things that pretty much anybody can start doing right now. And that'll help, you know, release synovial fluid. It'll help get the lymphatic flow going. It'll help to offset some of the muscle atrophying that you might experience from this quarantine. And it'll be just a nice way to spend some time too. And if you go outside and you have a nice pretty backdrop like I did, then you'll really, really enjoy it. So hope that helps you guys. You know, here's my contact info. If any of you guys have any questions, Chris at nonfictionfitness.com is probably the best way to get in touch with me. There's also a contact form on my website, nonfictionfitness.com, if you want to fill that out. And let me know what you think about this video. And let me know if you have any ideas for future videos, because I'd love to, you know, just keep serving you guys any way that I can. So it's been an awesome pleasure to share this with you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless you. I'm praying for you. And we're in this thing together. We're going to get through it together. Amen. And God loves you through it all. So I'll see y'all next time.